Hey, shout out folks, it's the old Rucker here. Redbeard and I and the rest of the shout out team wish you a happy Friday before what we hope is a great weekend for you. You know, it's crazy just thinking that last week we were in an apocalyptic storm, and today I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts. Not gonna kid you, I was bad to the body. Lots of cookies and Dr. Pepper. That's how I get through cabin fever. And other than a few spots of ice here and there, you'd never know we had that crazy storm. And yeah, I screwed up. The Winter Holiday Convention starts tonight, not last week. You see how snow brain affects people? Anyway, check out winterholidayconvention.com. That's winterholidayconvention.com for the speaker lineup, and I hope to see you there. Hey man, huge shout out to you anonymous donors for hitting up the buck bucket. You bless us, really. We are sincerely grateful. Thank you. We're saving up for new equipment, technology, and other endeavors, and we're going to get there. It's going to happen. All right, so this is the People's Show, your show, a platform where your message can be heard and shared with people looking for hope and good news. We want to share your story, how you overcame your hurt, habit, or hang-up, and what you do to maintain a healthy, happy life today. Contact us at shoutoutfromthepit.com. We're looking forward to meeting you and sharing your story with us and the world. We thank you for helping us to get the word out. The audience is growing weekly thanks to your help. If you're new to the show, please like and share on whichever platform you're listening to. And please follow us and share the Facebook page and YouTube with folks looking for positive and optimistic content. Be sure to subscribe and share shoutoutfromthepit.com. You'll get reminders of Diane's missives full of awesome tools and encouragement, insights from the Shout Out team, and episodes designed to edutain as you trudge the road to happy destiny. And as Ralph says, it's for free and for fun. Okay, so today's episode, wow, Joel's amazing journey speaks for itself. Joel, you are a blessing, an absolute miracle, and a recovery success story I can't wait for the audience to hear. I'm a better man for knowing you, and folks, after hearing his story, I hope you feel the same. Remember, these raw and uncensored recovery episodes are about real people with real struggles and real solutions. And now, on with the show. Danny, you set? All right, here we go. Shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker. All right, Danny. Coming at you raw and uncensored. And as always, only God knows what's going to happen on this show. Welcome to Shout Out from the Pit, where the host sucks. I'm talking about Bob, not Sherry and Jeremy, okay? And I'm the host today, and Redbeard, my friend, partner, producer, is the brains behind the scenes. Fellow host in the studio audience, our team, Jeremy. When you guys want to give a shout out.
Shout out, everybody.
Hello, hello.
And we have returning guest. Go ahead and give us a shout out, Lauren.
Hello.
All right. And our special guest today, Joel. Very grateful you're here. Give a shout out.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me, Bob.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to hear. This is our kickoff, our first show in the new year. Obviously podcasts are pre-recorded, so your show is going to come out, I think, February 6th, which is a Friday. So if I'm off a day or so, it'll be that Friday. And then the week before that, Sherry, will be your ladies open mic that you guys did. And then the show that when this show airs, we would have already heard those. So just move along, Bob. All right. So just a reminder, we've got more hosts in the audience here than we do guests right now. We have some folks on their way. So when they get here, they get here. But the way that we operate and Shout Out from the Pit is just kind of like open mic. You know, we're pretty relaxed, chilled. But the gist is we get to hear Joel's experience, strength, and hope. So that's where we're going. So I just want to ask y'all a question before we get started. How many resolutions have y'all broke already?
Zero.
Zero?
Because I didn't make any.
All right. Good
Same.
man.
0. Didn't make any.
All right.
I think I had one to open emails, and I'm still going. I'm still opening my emails. I'm not up to like 1,900 emails yet.
Okay. Jeremy, did you break any resolutions, or do you even make any?
I didn't make any. I quit making them because it sets an unrealistic expectation on myself every year. And then I just get disappointed whenever I miss a day, right? And then I start beating myself up. So, you know what? Why do I got to wait till the beginning of the year to have a resolution to do something? Just do it.
My thoughts exactly.
Yep. Very cool. All right. So, I always like to start a show with Did You Know? A little bit different this time. So a shout out to Lisa from, I think she's episode 16. I'm not sure. But we were chatting just before the holidays. In fact, I was pulling into El Paso, Texas, and she gave a call, and she's a Texan. We were just getting caught up, and she randomly was like, have you heard of Kratom? I'm asking you guys this question. Kratom, Kratom. You have heard of it, Jeremy? Have you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Where am I? Where have I been?
No.
Oh, good, Sherry. All right, so it's called a trucker's crack. I've never heard of this, and let me tell you what. Well, let me just get your guys' insight since you've heard about it. Why don't you guys tell me what you know about it? Because I'll probably get more juice out of personal experience than I would. Oh, I hope I don't cross lines there. Than I will from Dr. Google. So, give me your thoughts, guys.
I do not have any personal experience with it, thank God. I don't know a whole lot about it, but all I know is that I'm glad that I never dove into that direction.
Yeah, go ahead and share your insight.
Yeah, no, same. I thankfully didn't have any personal experience with it either, but I've heard some horror stories.
Yes.
And I know the name, and I think it was one of those that it was almost like the boogeyman of street drugs, where I was just like, I don't know, heard a lot of crazy things, but thankfully it was never offered to me.
Correct. Yeah. Same for me.
So I never have personally done it. Not Kratom. The thing with Kratom is I never knew, I knew about crack, cocaine, heroin, all of these things that you can get on the street and do. Those are the things that I was familiar with, right? I was never familiar with all of this other stuff that starts coming out over the years, right? Now you could go buy, instead of having a medical marijuana card, you can go get Delta 8 and 9 gummies.
Yep.
Exact same effect as marijuana, right? It's synthetically lab-made THC that has the exact same high effect. If you take certain amounts, right? You can go to the gas station and buy Kratom. Kratom acts like crack. Okay. Tianeptine is another one. It is gas station heroin. It has the exact same effect as heroin does in the body. And so the interesting thing with that is that people think they're doing this stuff, and that nobody's going to know that they're doing it, right? Because it's advertised as it's clean, it's safe, you can do all of these things. You can buy stuff at gas stations that acts just like speed. All of that stuff is out there. But what people don't realize is somehow this stuff is being made, and you will test positive for heroin, for crack, for marijuana when you take those items. And the only reason why I found that out was through treatment work, working with treatment centers. They would come in and start talking about how big of a problem this has become. Because people no longer have to go find a drug dealer to get the same effect and the same high as what they were getting from a drug dealer. All they have to do is go down to the local 7-Eleven, pull it off the counter, check out with the cashier, and you get the exact same effect and high. And then they're coming and checking in and saying, hey, this is what I've been doing. And they're saying, well, insurance isn't going to pay for it, right? But if we can test you and you test positive for this substance, then the insurance is going to pay for it. And so they start drug testing people through that process and finding out that they do, in fact, test positive for heroin, for crack, for speed, for marijuana.
Wow. Okay. So, hey, joining us, our team, Edie and Paul. Give a shout out, folks. You scream.
Hello.
So, they are behind the scenes with our forthcoming winter holiday. So, shameless plug. What are the dates of winter holiday?
6th through the 8th.
6th through the 8th. Oh, that's funny because this show right now airs the 6th. So let me make a note to make
4
a...
p.m. Registration opens up Friday at 4 p.m.
Okay,
Or is
so...
pre-registration still open?
The 23rd of January, you can pre-register for $30.
Okay, so website, winterholiday.com.
Winterholidayconvention.com.
Winterholidayconvention.com. Okay. I will put that in pre-show notes for the show that's airing this Friday. Wish I would have been doing that all along, Edie. I'm sorry. You're going to have to tell me it's your fault. You're going to have to give me reminders. Okay, so we start off the show just, our normal just BS. And I randomly had a chat with a friend that did episode 16, Lisa, and she was telling about Kratom. We were just having a chat. And I've never heard of it. And Sherry hadn't heard of it. So we are, you haven't, Paul, you ever heard of Kratom?
No, I had to go to the liquor store pick up some booze for a guy when on meth, quit meth, cover. Wasn't an alcoholic, over drugs.
Okay, that's funny, but that's a side note, but that's interesting. But on this subject, Kratom, and you said it, she called it the trucker's crack, and you used the same words I found on Dr. Google, gas station heroin. I had no idea that this stuff existed, and listening audience, this doesn't give us permission to go out there and try it. It is one of our yets, but my God, if it's so powerfully addictive that now that people are going to rehab for that, and it's free. I mean, free. It's free. You don't have to get it from a street vendor or what do you call it? A dealer.
Street-side pharmaceutical distributor.
Street-side pharmaceutical distributor. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is that what that is, K2?
That's K2.
K2 is different.
That's different.
It's the same principle though. You can you can purchase it legally.
Right. Okay.
So Joel probably knows some about this. So you have what they call the bath salts, and K2 have a lot of hallucinogen properties.
Yeah.
So they act a lot like LSD and acid.
That's a trip. Take a trip. I just wasn't. Never leave the farm. Remember that song? Some of these guys are too young to know what we're talking about. So I don't want to get into too much on this Kratom because I really want to get to our show with Joel. But a lot of the stuff you said, I'm just blowing through my notes here. Key aspects of Kratom. Folks, that's spelled Kratom as in Mike. Parents, I think you might want to get used to this or know about it because if anybody, you don't even have to be 18 to get it. You can just go get it, right? That's insane. So be aware of this because at low doses, Kratom acts as a stimulant, increased energy, alertness, while at high doses, it acts as a sedative and pain reliever with opiate-like properties, which is, I guess, why they call it the trucker's crack, because I can see that. Risk and dangers. The FDA has warned against its use, citing risk of addiction, seizure, and in rare cases, death, particularly when combined with other substances. It has been linked to severe adverse health effects, including liver damage, respiratory depression, and dependence. I think everything else that's in my notes, you guys already said. Rock my world. Okay, so that's our lesson for today, right? All right, so moving right along. All right, so Joel, again, thanks for joining us. Rest of y'all, thanks for coming. This we just released on Facebook, and Redbeard says that our episodes are from our other platforms are increasing because of the audience on the social media, so that's cool. So really glad you're here, and one of the reasons I'm glad you're here is because many of the folks I do shows with, I kind of already know their back. I don't know anything about you, bro. I know you've been on a few of the previous episodes as a studio audience. If I may say this, I guess. Hey, Sam, come on in. Samantha's just joined us. And of course, you guys, she's old hat to us. Now, give me some skin. Oh, I'll catch it later. So, all right. So, Jeremy is your sponsor?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's why I guess Jeremy said, we got to do a show with Joel. And I was like, you do the show. You're a host. And you're like, no, I sponsor him, so I'm not going to do it, but I want to be there. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I think you guys, it seems like everybody here, we got Bridging the Gap folks. All of you are, except for you. You're the outsider, so am I.
Paul shook his head. He's like,
what's your home group, Paul?
More will be.
And that's a Monday night meeting, right? More, and that's in Little Rock.
Yes.
Okay. Right. And of course, I'm the Hope group in North Little Rock, and the rest of you guys are, give a shout out. Somebody give a shameless plug for BTG. Where's it at?
BTG, we meet Mondays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. We meet at the Crystal Hill Assembly of God in North Little Rock on Mountain Pine Road, I think. Mondays are a closed big book study, powerful message in the Monday meetings, and then Thursdays are open discussion. Great group. Of course, I'm partial, but that is definitely my home.
Yeah, well, brother, I know so many, well, on you guys, but I know a lot of other folks that go to that group, and just great fellowship, man. I went there. I've been there a few times, but I went there like for the anniversary, ate my face off. I think I had to get an Uber just to get to my car in the parking lot. You guys had a hell of a spread.
Oh, yeah.
Birthday night?
First Thursday of the month is birthday night, where we celebrate all the birthdays from the month before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cake, homemade
amazing
cake, homemade cake, 4 cakes. You must be there to experience it. It's heavenly.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the reasons that we used to be like dedicated Thursday nights was going to be the podcast, right? And then, but because obviously you guys as host, that's your home group. So now we've just gone to flex because my date night is Tuesday night, but Shannon and I kind of like have an agreement. If I have to do a show like AKA tonight, then we'll just, I'll get it in somewhere else, But I don't want to be limited, especially you BTG people, because you're so awesome, even you, Sam. All right. How's the running going? You running?
I've not been running here lately, but I'm trying to get back into it. My mom's been real sick, so it kind of put me out for about almost 2 weeks. So
okay,
yeah, but I'll get back into it. She's doing okay. She had to start dialysis, and so that's a whole new experience.
Okay,
but
not stalking you, but I drove by your house the other day, and I waved.
You did?
Yeah.
Was I out there?
No.
Oh, well, that could be why I didn't wave back. Yeah, she beeps. She beeps.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah. I'm like, I'll be in my house going beep, beep back. I mean, just like I can hear her every time.
You know Dwight, right?
Yes.
So Dwight and I were out, and we drove by. I go, that's Sam's house. So he was like, I waved, and he's like, did you see her? I go, no.
But she's there.
And Dwight's like, you're a fool.
Oh, well.
So
I wave back now. I'll just
okay.
let me know. Thank you. Through the wall. I do have to say, though, so on Sam's episode, we talked about she had a piece of, what was it? A piece of metal, the siding from in the tree. So I don't know what Sam's episode is, but it's amazing. But we talked about it, that she needed somebody to come remove it. And you, Bob, didn't you show up the very next day with a big ladder?
Okay, so that's true. What happened was my cousin, Bobby, also my same name, we had the same name, and we're first cousins, so growing up all, same age. So our parents would just go, Bobby, and we'd just come running. So she was visiting for a couple hours on her way to another, she's from Arizona. She's awesome. Shout out, Bobby. She listens to the show. So she's just here, and I go, hey, told her about your metal situation. She's like, let's go.
Yes.
Okay, so we loaded up the ladder, and she held on to it. Well, I shook. I didn't realize how high up that thing was, So
I think I was sort of like, downplaying a little bit just to try to get somebody to come over there.
Oh, it worked. It worked.
About 10, 15 feet off the
yeah.
Like 25, 30.
Yeah, it took me about 4 hours to climb up there. But I was hanging on like a vine, too. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, the sunrises are so much sweeter now. I appreciate it.
Well, next time Dwight and I roll by, man, if you have coffee, we'll stop.
There you go. Just let me know.
But we looked at your vantage point so we could see, I could see why you wanted it out, because that was like directly in your view.
Eyesight, directly in the eyesight. But now it's like, every morning.
Okay, Sam.
See,
awesome.
You just have to come to a podcast, share your experience, strength, and hope, and you get the sighting out of your tree.
Yeah.
That's how this works.
What do you think, Joel?
You're like, this is about me?
I am just glad that I didn't have a piece of metal in one of my trees.
It was terrible. Terrible.
Well, you never know where the show's going to go.
Nope.
So, Joe, give us before we, obviously, who are you today? Just, give us a top of the dome snapshot of, the happiness that's in your life, and just, how do you say it? Unicorn and Paul?
Rainbows and unicorns.
Rainbow.
Yeah. So build us a picture, and then we're going to go backwards to come forward.
Well, I knew that you were going to ask this question. So, I've been trying to put, some thought into it, as a somewhat simple way to describe who I am today versus who I used to be. And the thing that I keep coming back to is that today I'm a person who is able to grow and adapt instead of run from everything in my life due to fear. Today I'm able to recognize my character defects and learn how to use the toolkit that I've been given, in recovery to grow and adapt to those changes and learn how to, maybe learn from my mistakes and not run from them like I used to. I mean, my entire life was completely full of fear before. And that's not to say that I don't experience fear today, because I do still experience fear in a great number of situations that I find myself in. But the difference is that today I know how to deal with and kind of cope with some of that fear, and that it is really important to reach out. Whereas before I had completely and utterly isolated myself from everyone. So that's kind of who I am today. I'm someone who is able and willing to grow, whereas before I was not.
This is Edie. I will just say I don't know who he was before, but he's a damn awesome person today.
Thank you, Edie.
What kind of things bring joy to you today?
Oh gosh. I mean, the people in this room, absolutely. I've been gifted with an entire extended family today that, I never would have experienced if I was not an alcoholic. Some of the things that just bring me a huge amount of joy. I definitely have my own conception of my higher power, which I'm sure we'll get into more in the show. But, I got emotional on my drive over here because I got in the car and I've been thinking about the podcast and a little nervousness and maybe some fear in there. But I got in the car and I was like, all right, God, ride with me to Bob's house. And music is one of the ways that my higher power communicates with me. And so I put my Spotify of my liked songs, which is like 2,000 plus songs. And I put it on shuffle, and two of my favorite songs ever played like back to back on my way over here. And that's just something that I'm able to recognize those things in the ways that my higher power communicates with me today. And things like that. I mean, I've taken a little break from it, but I got into rock climbing right after the pandemic in 2020. I've broken some bones, but I've still gone back to it, and I'm planning on going back to it. But I needed to take a break to kind of focus on myself and growing spiritually over the last few months. Spending time with friends. I mean, I don't know. As I'm speaking about this, like, it all comes back to my higher power. It all comes back to God, because any joy that I experience in life today would not be possible unless I had been able to form a relationship with my higher power. Time with family. I'll tell anyone that I know that I don't like kids, but I absolutely love my niece and nephew. They bring me a lot of joy. I was able to spend some time with them this past Sunday. We went out to eat, and it was just a really good time. I mean, it's simple things in life bring me joy. Being able to be of service to others and to help carry the message of AA really brings me joy. Can't say that I ever necessarily look forward to being of service or carrying the message or helping in that way, but I always reap the rewards of it after it happens. So those are just a few of the things that bring me joy today.
That's cool. Well, I met you. You've been on. I think this is your third or fourth episode that you've been. Okay, I'm not even sure.
Yep.
But I know the first time we met, you have this aura about you that's caring. I know there were some snarky remarks that you made about yourself with Lauren on that particular show, which were funny. But you do have this caring, demeanor about you, so that's cool. I do want to ask you a serious question, though. Why do you think Jeremy hates his voice?
I was wondering how you were going to incorporate this into the show.
That was perfect.
That was a perfect segue. So we were actually chatting about this a little bit before the show started, and Jeremy had mentioned that he does not like his voice. And I said, well, no one likes their voice to hear it on a recording. And the reason, there's actually a scientific reason behind that, and that is because I can't tell you the exact medical definition or anything like that, but I have done research into it because I hate the sound of my own voice on a recording. And me wanting to pick apart everything and know and understand the underlying meanings behind everything, I decided to research why I didn't like my own voice, because to me, like, I hear my voice a certain way, but then I hear it played back on a recording and I'm like, who the hell is that? That sounds terrible. So I did research into it. And the reason that we generally don't like the sound of our own voices is because when we hear our own voice, it sounds deeper than it is on a recording. But the reality is that whenever we hear it back on a recording or hear ourselves on a voicemail or anything like that, that is the true sound of our voice, but we hear it differently because the vibration of our vocal cords are the proximity that they are to our inner ears affects how we hear our own voices. So when I'm speaking to you right now, this is how I sound to me is not how I sound to any of y'all. I sound deeper to myself, and then when I hear myself in a recording, I'm like, oh, I don't like that. But that's just the reality of the situation. Acceptance is the answer to that.
You got to get the mic.
What were the two songs?
The two songs. So the first one was Castle on the Hill by Ed Sheeran. And the second one was The Adventure by Angels and Airwaves. Is that what you were? That was my question. Okay. Check them out.
So I get feedback on the shows, and one of the feedback I got was that guy Jeremy's got a great voice. So I told him that, and he was like, "Yeah, no, I haven't even listened to my own show." I'm like, "Well, that's," and then of course talking to Sherry, I'm like, "Well, I'd like you guys to be, consider being host on the show because the audience disagrees with you, Jeremy." So anyway, moving along. I know why I wanted to go there because we were talking about this too. There are people that I've invited to come on the show, but they'll talk to us all day long until the mic is put in front of their face. Mm-hmm. And they're like, they hate their voice so bad. And I'm like, well, I mean, please try to get over that, because in this platform, we want to take your message to the world and, hopefully help the hurting. So if you could maybe get over your ego of your own voice, that'd be great. I'm not trying to be a banana here, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah. I think I'd mentioned this, but the life that I've been gifted with today, I do have a responsibility to help carry the message to anyone who may need it. I will tell you all day long, I cannot stand the sound of my own voice, but I'm not going to allow that to impede my ability to do what I'm supposed to be doing today and carry the message.
Boom. Man, that's well said. Thank you. All right. So how long have you been on your recovery journey now? And well, let me ask the first question. What is your sobriety date?
So my sobriety date is August 1st of 2018.
Okay, cool. So we're looking at you're moving into your 8th year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you dabble with potentially entering a recovery journey before then? Was it off and on? Was it immediate? Or should I come back to that later? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, look, you're leading the witness. So.
I'm doing a terrible job. That's my line.
So I was not an alcoholic before I got into recovery. I mean, it was, this is hopefully my only attempt at sobriety that I will ever have to make. I know that it is the only one that I ever have to make. But hopefully God sees fit that it will be my only one, because I don't believe that I have another sober in me. I don't believe that I have another recovery in me. Because the psychological damage that it would do to me if I ever went back out, I don't know if I could ever recover from. I hope that I would be able to, if unfortunately that ever happens. So I, somewhere in my subconscious for years, I knew that there was a problem and that I needed help, but I was blocking it with so many substances and so many other things that I was not allowing myself to recognize the damage that I was doing to myself. I grew up in a household. I didn't have exposure to drug addiction or alcoholism or anything in my family, or even really in my extended family. I mean, I had one cousin that was significantly older than me on my dad's side of the family, who I knew that he had issues with drug addictions and stuff like that and alcoholism, but they lived in a different state. And so I was never immediately around it. So I didn't really have any exposure outside of what I would see on TV of someone being drunk or anything like that. But I started drinking when I was 13 years old. It was at my cousin's wedding. They told me that they told my dad that they were not going to serve just orange juice and that they had already poured up the mimosas. So I wanted something to drink, and my dad thought, why not? And then I went back for another and another. But I'm trying to veer myself back on topic to your question. I displayed in several ways through various behaviors that I had for a lot of years that I needed some sort of, rehabilitation or get into recovery or counseling or something like that. But, my parents were both hippies. They grew up in that era, and they had seen friends of theirs be forced into forced interventions and recovery and stuff like that. And they witnessed it not working for them. So they knew, even though they were seeing this behavior that I was displaying, they knew that if they had ever tried to force an intervention on me, I was going to run the opposite direction. And they were correct about that, because you're not ready until you're ready. Of course, I didn't know that was their viewpoint until almost right before I got into recovery, because of a conversation that I'd had with my dad. He said, your mom and I never believed in any kind of forced interventions, but we knew that you needed help for a long time. Everything happens for a reason. I'm really glad that they didn't do that, because who knows if I would even still be alive today, because I absolutely 100% would have rebelled as hard as I could against that.
Well, were you an outgoing or introvert? I guess those are the two terms, introvert, extrovert. What kind of kid were you that led maybe, and then give us a snapshot of how that maybe transitioned into your rebellion?
Okay. Introverted, 100%. Some people that I have been really close with in the past would not peg me as an introvert, but that's because and see, Sherry's shaking her head no, I am severely introverted. I have one of the tools that I've learned in recovery is to push myself outside of my comfort zone. Because the only thing that is waiting for me in my comfort zone is my alcoholism. I was very introverted growing up. I remember, my earliest memories are from like 2 years old. And I remember feeling different. I couldn't like consciously put it into words at that age that like, there's something wrong with me. But I remember always just not fitting in. I knew like in my soul that there was something different with me. And that impacted my behaviors, my interactions, everything like that. And then like there were several things that occurred in my childhood which made me go deeper inside my own self instead of branching out and forming relationships. So I started rebelling. I started rebelling at a very, very young age. At first, it seemed innocent. But from a very young age, due to the environment that I grew up in, I learned how to lie and manipulate from like single digit ages. I learned how to say the things that I needed to say or display the emotions that I needed to display in order to either manipulate the situation to how I wanted it to be or completely remove myself. In school growing up, I had my, I guess, core group of friends, but it was like one or two people. And I was very timid and shy. And the only thing that brought me any sort of like extroversion or me being able to express myself at all is I started dancing when I was 5 years old. I begged my mom. My mom she told me that she used to lay me on the floor as a baby, and I would like kick my legs while laying on the floor and watching Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. And so I started asking my mom to dance when I was 3 years old. And she thought it was just a phase, and she would tell me, she's like, Joel, if you still want to dance when you're 5, we can get you into some dance lessons. And that's exactly what happened. I started tap dancing when I was 5 years old. I started ballet when I was 7. And that became like the primary focus of my life because that was my escape. From a very early age, I was trying to escape how I felt about myself and my thought processes in my own mind. That was my release. That was an addiction for me from the very beginning. I've said this before in meetings, and I'll say it again. I believe that I was born with the alcoholic gene, the disease of alcoholism, the disease of addiction. Long before I ever put a substance in my body, I was displaying the signs.
When you had said you got into rock climbing a little while ago, that used to be one of my jams, man. The chalk bag, the coal shoes, and I wasn't surprised because you have the physique for it. But then when you said dancing was your thing, I could see that, man. Did you ever have any aspirations of going to Broadway or anything like that?
Not really Broadway. Although that would have been a lot of fun. The mental aspects that kind of go along with my alcoholism started displaying themselves early on. And I was a very, very good dancer. I was a very good tap dancer. I was very good at ballet because me and my ego had to be the best at everything. I was going to work and work and work until I became the best, and I was going to outshine everyone. And that is part of my alcoholism. That is part of my disease of alcoholism because that is laced with my ego. I switched I tap danced, but once I started ballet and once I really got into ballet, like that became my passion. That is where I felt the most freedom. Maybe that I've ever felt in my entire life outside of, these later years in recovery. But when I was 18, there were, I guess, some scouts or whatever you want to call them from ballet companies, a few ballet companies around the country, And I got a few different job offers to join their company. But I made the decision to not go with that. And I made the decision to go to college because that's what was expected of me by my parents. My parents, in the era that they grew up in, they firmly believed that if you wanted to make anything out of yourself, you had to have a college degree. That is the only way. It didn't matter. They used to tell me all the time, it doesn't matter what your degree is in, but employers want to see that you can buckle down and finish something. I never wanted to go to college. I did what I had to do in high school to clep out of my senior finals so that I could get out of school 3 weeks earlier than all of my friends because I was done. I did not want to continue going to school. But that belief from my parents had been drilled into me so heavily that that's the decision that I made. I was like, well, I need to go to college, not knowing what the hell I wanted to study. And so I turned down those job offers and I said, well, I'll go to school for a year and then see. 18 years old. Even at 18 years old, I did not see a future for myself because by the time I was 18, I had already started dabbling in alcohol and some other substances. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah.
And this goes to, something that Joel just said. And I think that if you're a young person out there listening to this right now, I truly believe, talk to your parents, talk to, people who counsel you and stuff like that. But, and if you're a parent or a grandparent out there, don't crush somebody's dream because it can alter the path in which their life takes. We can always go to college later. Yeah. There is another career that I can have, but that dream may die at that moment and change the course in which my life takes.
Yeah. And that's not to say that like my parents weren't supportive of me. They were extremely supportive of me. They, I don't hold any resentments towards them at all. I've worked through those. I had a big part to play in those resentments that I had. They were doing the best that they could. They had no idea that they were drilling that belief into me as heavily as they were. That was just how life was for them.
Sure.
So,
as parents, we mess up our kids. Shannon says this, right? We mess up our kids with the greatest of intentions. But even as a parent myself, my son and I chatted for about an hour today, and I'm just grateful he took the time to talk to me. I mean, because a lot of kids don't want to talk to their parents, and we had some rocky history because of my own journey. But I've told him, he's about to be moving down his own road in this whole parent thing. And it's like the best advice I can give you, love him and listen to him, but still, we got to have boundaries around our kids. You guys are all parents. You know what I'm talking about, right? But as far as the dancing goes, I'm really looking forward to winterholidayconvention.com Saturday night, 10 o'clock. We still doing that every right? Yeah. All right. So you're going to be down there breaking a leg or shaking a leg or whatever they call it.
No.
Only if they play a ballet tune.
I can make that happen.
No, I'll be stationed at the Grapevine table. Come out and see me.
Okay.
And Lauren.
Shameless plug for the Lauren Grapevine too. What's that?
I said shameless plug for the Grapevine.
All right. I had another thought, but my age is showing. So any thoughts before I
have a question. So That's why I said no to being an introvert. I know that you danced. How does an introvert get on stage in front of all those people and perform?
So I'm glad that you asked that question because this is something that I don't get to describe to a lot of people because it's difficult for me to put into words. And call it a result of trauma or whatever else it may be. I developed the ability early on to separate myself from what was happening. There's like a little doorway in my brain that I can actually go inside myself and only be experiencing the emotion that I'm holding inside of me instead of my external factors. And so when I would get on stage, like it was terrifying. I mean, I performed in front of hundreds of people before. But the joy that I got out of dancing far outweighed any of the fear. It's not to say that I didn't have the fear, but the joy that I got from doing that softened the fear that I was experiencing, softened that nervousness. And as long as the lights were not on in the audience, I can't really see anyone's faces anyway, because the stage lights are blinding me. But yeah, it's that ability to kind of compartmentalize. That's probably the best word for it. The nervousness and the fear, because I knew at that time that what I was doing was worth it, was worth pushing past that. And then, I mean, after so many years of performing in front of people, it just kind of becomes routine and you get used to it. But I also am not having to sit in a room small talking with people and things like that. I know, and I've been told before that I can seem standoffish and cold and stuff like that, but that's just because I can't. I just can't do like small talk with people. I want real human connection. I want those deep conversations. Not to say that I won't do small talk, but I think that's part of my introversion is like, it was more comfortable for me to get on stage and not have to have a conversation or do any kind of public speaking versus being in a room full of people and having to get up and talk. I don't know if that makes any sense, but.
Sounds like you were like kind of in your own world, and you said you were really good. So you had this confidence. So how does that confidence, like usually people that are introverted, that don't have the confidence to be outside of, themselves in a social setting. Tell me about like the confidence of dancing, how it's like a line. It's like a line in the sand. Is that right? Like to be confident out on the stage, dancing, and then not confident in a room, people to have conversation.
Yeah.
We're funny like that, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's kind of difficult to describe. But there is that line, and ego played a huge role in it. I mean, looking back at and utilizing the tools that I've been gifted in recovery, ego was a giant theme throughout my entire life. I mean, even from a very, very, very young age, because I always think that I know best. I always am going to believe that I know best. But if I have confidence in myself in something, I'm kind of unstoppable. And that I don't say that from an egotistical standpoint today. But that's just, that's a characteristic of mine where if I find something that I love, or if I find something that I can be competitive in, which dancing was a competitive sport for me. I mean, it was, rock climbing is competitive. My ego will give me enough confidence to solely focus on that one task at hand. My life can be burning down behind me. But it allows me to compartmentalize whatever else is going on and strictly focus on that.
Just real quick. I think because I do the same thing with singing. And I think that kind of what you're trying to say too is because you're good at dancing, because it is something you do well.
Yes.
Then that confidence inherently comes with that. And because you're where we always think we're not good enough for people, we're now bringing them pleasure.
Exactly.
We're now giving them something that you see a result of them enjoying it. Yeah. That's what happens with me.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Thank you.
Wait a minute. You sing? Well,
She does. She sings a lot. She sings good.
Oh, bust a chord, girlfriend.
So, I have kind of two questions, and they're both super selfish. So I'm just going to put that out
that's
there.
Fine.
So first, it's uncanny how similar our stories are. Yeah. Everything from feeling uncomfortable at 3 years old to not feeling like comfortable in my own skin to starting dance at 3. Like I'm an introvert as well, but people say that I'm an extrovert, like all of those things. Yeah. Like it's dumb. And I know we've talked about this before, but so here's where it becomes selfish. So you said that you were 18, you were very good at dancing and you had this opportunity but you did not go that route, right? You went to college. I think so. Part one of my question was any part of that decision influenced by drugs and alcohol?
Absolutely.
And then the second part of it would be, was there regret? And if there was, like, what's that journey been like for you to walk through maybe the regret of what could have been?
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head, and I mean, that's great questions. Thank you for asking those, because that kind of allows me to bring up another thing that I wanted to talk about. So me not continuing on to dance ultimately was everything is kind of intertwined. So I started drinking when I was in high school. I started like really drinking when I was in high school. I started experimenting with other substances. But in the fall of my freshman year of college, Nutcracker season was coming up, and I was just in a normal dance class. It's crazy how all this ties together. I was in a dance class, and I was doing, it's called, the technical term for it is an attitude turn. Basically, you're on one leg, turning around, your other leg is behind you backwards, kind of at an angle. So I did like a triple attitude turn, and when I shifted my weight back onto my left leg, my left knee completely dislocated, and I fell to the floor. Like it completely dislocated. My kneecap was on the other side of my leg. And so it was bad. I was shocked at first, but I just remember I hit the floor hard. I looked down, and I was not experiencing any pain yet. I looked down, my left foot was like back by my hip, but it was still facing upwards. And I was like, just instinctually, I was like, that doesn't look right. I have to fix it.
No kidding.
Control issues coming into play there. So I grabbed my leg and I put my leg back in place. I put it back in place. And I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with the little like elastic toys that you would press the bottom of and they would fall apart, and then you would let go and they would kind of wobble back in place. Well, that's exactly what my knee did. And then the pain set in. But see, up to this point, I had not been introduced to any kind of prescription medication, but I was at this point. And because of the pain that caused and the devastation of kind of the end of my dance career, I mean, I tried to go back after that, but it didn't work out. That is something that I freely gave to my alcoholism. That is something that I didn't fight against. I allowed myself to sink deeper into. And as far as the regret portion, I have throughout the years experienced what ifs. Like, I wonder what my life would be like today if I had gone on to become like a professional ballet dancer. I mean, I'm 40 years old now, so however it went, that career would be over at this point anyway. But I think of I deal with knee problems because of damage that I did with intensively as I trained in ballet. But there was, as far as like the regret thing, and this is something that I struggle with, but I saw like a clip of an interview. I think Anderson Cooper was interviewing Stephen Colbert, and it was about regrets and stuff like that. And Stephen Colbert basically said, like, I can't recite it verbatim, but it was basically like, if you're grateful for your life, you have to be grateful for everything that has gone on in your life, the good and the bad. Because if you're truly grateful and you're truly blessed for your life, how you are today and like where my life is today, if any of that stuff had been different in the past, I would not be sitting in here with a room full of people that love me and that I love. So I can have like what ifs, but to truly sit there and regret how my life has gone in my soul, I don't think that does my higher power justice, because my higher power has brought me exactly to where I am today.
I think we need to take a break to recover from that description you gave us. But before we do, Paul, I see the mic moving. Sorry, I'm still in trauma right now. That was rough, brother. That not just the description, okay, but my heart went out to you. That's just rough. But Paul, take it.
I don't know. My thing was if it went out in dance class, if you was doing it professionally, everything under God's green earth happens for a reason. Would it's like you're meant to be sitting right there, and would it not have happened maybe even sooner if you'd started doing it professionally?
Yeah, maybe. We'll never know. That's one of the what ifs that,
Right. All right, folks, what do you say we take a break and we'll come back and hit it, all right? Cool.
Carry on.
All right, welcome back. I needed that break, man. That trauma, man, messed me up. Lauren and I and you, Joel, we had to go out there and vape away our pain. That was heavy. All right, so man, a lot of good chatter, a lot of good stuff here. I want to hit on the experience a little bit more. We really didn't get into, we talked about the ego, we talked about the control, of course, then the life-changing event, the crushing event. Mm-hmm. So tell us more about your experience and, whatever, like I said, top of the dome, whatever comes to your mind. And let me just remind the folks sitting in the room here, man, don't hold back if there's a question or something to help lead the witness. Let's go there. But I need the listening audience out there to really, what we're doing is you're qualifying why you earned the chair that you're sitting in, so to speak. Is that how we say it, right? All right. So hit on that, man.
Okay. Well, yeah, I definitely earned my seat. And am highly qualified, maybe overly qualified. I am a tried and true alcoholic. Didn't know that I was an alcoholic until I was able to learn and absorb some information about the disease of alcoholism. But just kind of to give an overview of my experience. So I had mentioned before that I took my first drink when I was 13 years old. I remember the feeling of, I didn't get drunk. I mean, I didn't have access. If I had had the access, I probably would have. But it was in a public setting and I couldn't sneak back to the bar too many times to get a fifth and sixth mimosa. But so I, just a little backstory up to the point when I was 13 years old, I experienced several different traumas in childhood. And I thought for a long time that was the cause of my drug addiction, alcoholism, addictive personality. By the time I was about 11 years old, I had suffered all kinds of abuse, mental, emotional, physical, and sexual. And so I had mentioned before being introverted and kind of living inside of myself, and those traumas forced me to go inside of myself more because I didn't have anyone that I felt like I could talk to about it, because all of those traumas were in my household. And so, but I didn't know at the time. Of course, when you're young, you don't know, like, this stuff isn't supposed to be happening, and you don't have the experience of learning like how other kids grow up and things like that. And I didn't learn until, later in life that the things that I had experienced were actually trauma. And those things have, stuck with me. I think any kind of trauma is going to leave some sort of permanent mark on your soul, and your psyche. But we have a responsibility. I can't speak for other people. I have a responsibility as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, as a grown adult, as a mature adult, to work through those things instead of continuing to use them as a crutch for my various issues. So I started drinking when I was 13. Really dove into drinking when I was 16 because I decided that I was going to start stealing out of my parents' liquor cabinet. I started drinking and driving when I was 16 years old. Thinking it was fun. I was reckless. I didn't really see any life past like 18 or 19 years old at that point because I was so consumed with the traumas that I had experienced. The only thing that I wanted to do was quiet my mind. I suffered from insomnia the entire time I was growing up. I thought it took everyone, 3.5 to 4 hours to fall asleep. And I didn't learn until after I was 18 years old that like, that's not normal. But looking back on it, it was because of the things that I had experienced in childhood that just kept my mind racing and running. Now, my alcoholism was placing a big kind of restraint on me being able to escape that type of mindset because I wanted to control everything. I was consumed with thinking about how I was gonna, alter my surroundings or whatever it may be. But then when I was 18 years old, I moved out of my parents' house, and it was on at that point. It was on because I had started manipulating, lying, scheming. I was a very, very, I hate to admit this now, but it is part of my story. I was a very, very skilled liar. And that was something that stroked my ego. I could get anyone to do what I wanted them to do with a little bit of manipulation and some seemingly genuine emotion behind it. That was me controlling all of my situations. I had no idea that my life was spiraling out of control at that point. Between the ages of 18 and 19, I had become addicted, like physically dependent upon several different substances, alcohol being one of them, because I went buck wild. I grew up in a very strict household. My parents were, I think they had control issues of their own, which is, partially where I probably picked up some of it from. And so when I got that freedom, when I got out of my parents' house, I was pretty much doing anything that was put in front of me. I got an apartment with my best friend. We were the party house. And it was all fun. That was my solution at that point. I was young. That's what young people are supposed to do, right? You at 18, you start college and you start partying. And I was displaying very, very dangerous behavior in that age. There was, I'm not going to go into the gory details, but like I probably should, if you looked at what I had done on paper between the ages of 18 and 19, I should not have lived. Miraculously, I didn't overdose. So my grades started slipping, and so my parents took back that control of me, and I moved back in with them so that they would continue paying to go to school. I'm very grateful that my parents footed the bill for my college tuition, and I didn't have to take out any student loans. And so I am very, very grateful for that. But you could not have gotten any idea that I was grateful at the time, because it was all about me. I had to do what I wanted, when I wanted, and what I wanted at all times. And if I was not able to do that, I was going to make your life hell.
Yeah. So talk about consequences. Are you getting any consequences? You moved back into, with your parents, you have a place to live. Are you getting in trouble? What's these consequences? Any?
So this is another thing that played into my ego, is that I cannot sit here and say that I ever got in trouble with the law. I should have on several different occasions. I absolutely should have. But because I was not suffering the consequences that one would think that I should be facing, that empowered my ego even more, because it allowed me to believe I still had control over all of this stuff. And when from a very young age, I got a rise out of being able to get away with stuff that I was not supposed to be doing. that fed my ego like nothing else because it made me feel powerful over myself and those around me. I mean, there's a video when I was like 4 years old. My parents would set up a camcorder on our Christmas, and I got some Pez candy. And there's a video of my dad saying, "Joel, don't you eat any more of that candy." And literally, as soon as he turned his back, I pulled one out and slipped it in my tongue. And he turned right back around. And he goes, "Did you just eat a piece of that candy?" I said, "No, Daddy." On video. And I was 4 years old at that time. And so it's like my lying, scheming, manipulation started at that young of an age, because I was going to, come hell or high water, I was going to do what I wanted to do, but I couldn't let you know that I was actually doing those things. And that fed my ego like nothing else, because that was power. I was able to get away with what I wanted to do without anyone being the wiser.
So how did you get into recovery? So what happened when did the wheels fall off?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I'm doing the math over here, and I'm not a math major, so I can be off. You had your 8 years. You said you were 40, so you've been in the program almost, or about 8 years, right? Okay. And so you had from 18 to about 32 some wild, hard living.
Oh yeah.
So you got 14 years of consequences that you escaped. So that's a good question. What in the world, without the consequences, hitting the bottom consequentially, monetarily brings a lot of people in. But what was your bottom, or what's Mandy say? What was your trigger? Turning point. That's what she says.
I didn't suffer any consequences with the law, but I absolutely came into this program with a list of consequences. The consequences that I faced, I mean, I was a low bottom drunk, drug addict, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there was a bar that I had when I was 18 years old, and I started getting into this life that I was not supposed to be living. And that bar kept lowering and lowering and lowering. And then it got to the floor. And then my mom passed away when I was 24 years old. And once that happened, that bar broke through the damn floor and everything just caved in. And there was no moral compass at that point. There was no, I have to still be good in this area. It was, I gave up. I hit an emotional, spiritual bottom that I don't ever want to experience again in my life. Incomprehensible demoralization was astonishing with me. My turning point, I'd mentioned my mom passed away. After that happened, I absolutely gave up on life. I was 24 years old, and I could not see any type of a future. I did not know anything about recovery. I didn't know that life could be better, because I thought that this was just going to be my existence. And I had succumbed to the belief that this disease, I didn't know it was a disease at the time, this drug addiction, alcoholism, was just going to take my life. And I was okay with it. I did not care. I did not have a single care about it taking my life, because I was not able to see any type of a future. I was 24, didn't think that I would live to see 25. Between those ages and the time that I got into recovery, there were some suicide attempts. And it was things like, it was just absolutely off my rocker stuff, like trying to slam my head into a door frame in the hopes that it would knock myself out and I would just, die of a concussion or something like that. I would swallow all kinds of pills. Just kind of like, thank God it didn't work. I lived alone in a house in Conway. I had a couple of overdoses, and the only thing that saved my life was that I didn't pass out laying on my back. I passed out laying on my side, so I didn't suffocate from my own vomit. I don't know how I survived those things. I'm very grateful today that I did, but I was not grateful at the time. I used to go to sleep. I would pass out in the hopes that I wouldn't wake up, and I would be angry and resentful that I woke up because I absolutely hated myself. The only emotion that I had any familiarity with when I came into the program was pure and utter rage. Because I hated myself. I hated everyone around me. I could not stand being alive. Part of that was fear that if I kept staying alive, that I was going to have to do something to change my life. And that was going to take work. And I did not want to put in any work. My last suicide attempt was in February of 2018. And up to this point, I have an internal monologue. I have since learned that not everyone has an internal monologue. I think in general, us as alcoholics have internal monologues. But I have met a few people in my life that don't. And that is a crazy concept to me, but it really exists in the world. But that internal monologue, imagine an external person constantly being in your ear 24/7 telling you what a piece of shit you are, how terrible of a person you are, you don't deserve anything, you are a worthless waste of space, you don't have a right to live in society with all these people. And it was constant. That was my internal monologue. And the reason why this experience is so profound to me is because it changed. After that suicide attempt, it was just a brief glimmer of hope, and I know now that this was my higher power talking to me. See, up to this point, I was proudly agnostic. I was like, no one's going to talk to me about God because it has not been proven to me. There may be a God out there. There may be millions of gods out there, but until it's been proven to me, and it will never be proven to me because of the life that I've lived up to this point. See, all of that was selfishness, self-centeredness, egotistical mindset that there's not a higher power out there because of what had happened to poor old little me in my life. But the voice, the internal monologue changed. And what it wasn't my internal monologue. It was my higher power. And it was a brief glimmer of hope in my brain. It went from, you're a terrible person, you're a worthless piece of crap, to, Joel, maybe you can have a good life. And I vividly remember it because I thought, what the hell? That's not...
Who are you and what did you do with my inner monologue?
And I thought, what the hell? And it was just very brief, but it was a seed that got planted in my head. You don't know where it came from. It just happened because, oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know what my question was. It just showed up. It just random.
I don't think it was random. I think my higher power was like, all right, Joel, I'm going to start placing my hands on your shoulders and kind of trying to direct you where to go. I don't care if you don't believe in me or whatever, but we got to change whatever's going on here, because if you don't change, you are absolutely going to die. And it hit me like, this disease is not killing me fast enough. And it was not killing me fast enough. And the thought of having to continue living the way that I was in the absolute, utter, consuming misery that I was living in was unbearable for me to deal with. And I was too chicken, thank God, to take a conventional route out for someone in my situation. And it was that seed that was planted. I was faced with, you're either going to continue living this way, destroying your body, destroying your mind, destroying your health, destroying everyone around you, even though I didn't really have anyone around me left, or I can do something different. And I haven't shared this since the first time that I shared my story a few years ago, but I'm a big TV buff, okay? And have y'all ever watched the show Mom?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love it.
So I started watching the show Mom. It's about a mother and daughter alcoholics, and they're in recovery. Before, when I was still out in my active alcoholism, I started watching that show, and I was like, maybe. It was like, Lauren, you have mentioned like a spiritual maybe before. that's kind of how I viewed it, as like, if this is what recovery can look like, then maybe I can get a piece of that too. And that, I mean, it sounds silly saying it out loud, but it's like that show had an impact on me, and it made me see that, like, my life may be shit now, but I don't have to continue living this way. And I had never had any any exposure to Alcoholics Anonymous or any 12-step program, because the only thing that I knew about 12-step programs is that God was involved, and I was not going to have anything to do with God. And so I think all of those factors combined helped me hear my higher power for the first time, at least in a very long time. And that thought, I mean, it went away as quickly as it came in, that maybe you can have a good life. Maybe you can be a productive member of society. I didn't know how the hell that was going to happen. But because of my mindset and where I was in my disease at that point, that thought went away as quickly as it came in. But it kept recurring, and it kept recurring. And during this time, I knew that my dad was about to be absolutely done with me, because he said something to me one time that I'm very, very grateful for him saying, because he called me on my bullshit finally. We were in a heated argument because I wasn't getting my way about something. And I brought up, well, maybe I should just kill myself. And he screamed at my face. He goes, maybe you effing should. And that wasn't him wanting me to do it. That was him putting his foot down and setting that boundary of, I'm not going to put up with your bullshit anymore. And I'm very, very grateful that he did that, because that was an eye-opening experience for me. And he had always told me up until this point, my parents did not believe in forced interventions, but even though he was barely in my life, he always let me know, if you ever get to a point where you want to get help, I'm willing to help you, because you're my son and I love you. So in July, well, actually it was in June of 2018, I hit bottom. I could not go on existing the way that I was. I can't call it a life. I can't say that I was living. I was merely existing. Waking up to use and then passing out, and then waking up to use again and then passing out. But I reached out randomly to my dad one day, and he said, all right, I'll start researching rehabs for you. I said, Dad, I need help. That was the first time that I had ever said, I need help. I cannot do this on my own. Because I had no idea where to turn. I was so unbelievably miserable and so full of rage that I could not function. So he dove in. He basically dedicated time to researching, rehab facilities that would accept my insurance. And if he hadn't done that, I probably would not be sitting here today. And so that kind of all, I guess, to answer y'all's question, that was a really long answer, but, so that was my turning point, as Mandy would say. It's like the prospect of continuing to live in the complete and utter misery that I was in.
As a father, kind of in your dad's shoes in a way, man, I've just felt this wave of relief. So now, how did you get to, where'd you go to rehab? And I'm very curious how you ended up at BTG, okay, or Bridging the Gap. And then, of course, you know where I'm going to go with that one. So.
Oh, yeah. So my dad found, he gave me, he never tried to have control over the situation, and he didn't say, I found this place, this is where you're going. He would present them to me as options, and he knew me well enough to know that that's exactly what I needed, and that's the only way that I was going to accept anything. Even though I had previously reached out to him for help, I was still going to be in control of the situation, which is just completely ridiculous.
I think you learned your tactics inherently from your dad.
And so he gave me a few options, and I decided to go for an intake interview at Bradford Health. And this was when it was over on Hermitage Road in Little Rock before they moved to the hospital. And they're unfortunately no longer a facility here. But that place, that was one of the places that saved my life. But I go in for my intake interview and I was like, okay, I have to be honest because I know that they're probably going to ask me what all I'm using and the amounts of what I'm using. And I did my interview and she was like, well, we can't accept you right now because we don't have the ability to detox you. And so you are going to have to go into a medically supervised detox before we can accept you into our facility. And I was like, that was really difficult to hear, but I started realizing at that point the severity because I was in a fog. I mean, I kept myself blinded to how bad I really was. Because I didn't want to see how bad I was. And so she presented me some options. And so I went to Unity Health up in Searcy, and I was in that detox for 75 hours. That was an incredibly awful experience. And if I had known going into that experience all the hell that I was about to go through, I don't think that I would have gone through with it. I'm
curious. I'm curious. What does that? I mean, I know some of us here have been through some severe detox. What was your?
So this was a new brand of hell that I had not yet experienced. So I am 6'6". When I went in, they weigh you, and I was 119 pounds.
Holy cow.
I was literally a walking skeleton. I was not eating because any money that I was able to get or steal or anything, it could not go to food because it had to go to feeding my alcoholism and my addictions. So yeah, I was 119 pounds. And even then when they weighed me, I was like, oh, okay. And it did not dawn. I was so fogged and so blinded to my situation that that didn't have an impact on me. But when I started to get a little bit of clarity was at the end of my second day there, they came in and took the heart monitor off of me because they had to keep me on a heart monitor because they were familiar with my usage and they were afraid that I was going to have a heart attack from detox. And so they took the heart monitor off me and they were like, all right, well, you can take a shower. And I remember standing and looking in the mirror with my gown off before I took a shower, and I saw myself like with somewhat clear eyes, and I looked dead. Like my skin was gray. I don't know how much longer I would have lived, honestly. But that was a very stark awakening for me. And I remember I vividly thought, what the hell have you done to yourself? And I got pissed. I got really angry because I'm like, how did I let this happen? Because you see, at this point, I thought that I was still in control of everything. Still did not realize that I didn't have any control. And so I took my shower, and that, seeing myself in the mirror like that was a spiritual experience for me. That was something that I needed to see in order to understand where I was and what my situation was. And so finished that, they kept me highly medicated, in that detox. But they released me and they cleared me for release and stuff like that. And that was on a Sunday evening. And then I was set to start my rehab at Bradford the following morning.
Just a real quick question.
Yeah.
Did we talk about obsession and what's another term, jonesing? Mm-hmm. Were you like, wanting to get high during this, or were you done, or was that not? When you say highly medicated, was that to remove the obsession? I'm just curious what that.
They had me on Suboxone and Librium, to combat any potential heart issues, detox, that could throw me into some other sort of serious medical condition. Because I mean, I have not gone into the copious amounts that I was putting in my body, but I was putting very, very, very high doses of prescription medication in my body. Alcoholism, of course, alcohol was there through it all. During this point, I just knew that I was miserable. I don't recall thinking like, oh, I need to go get high during this, but I was whacked out of my mind. I mean, absolutely, just not in my right mind. So
you went from there to Bradford.
I did go from there to Bradford. And then after my first day in Bradford, I started experiencing life and I couldn't handle it. And so Bradford was not inpatient. I started with partial hospitalization where I was there for like 6 or 8 hours a day, but I didn't stay there overnight. And so what I did after my first day was I went and relapsed. Because I couldn't handle the emotions that I was experiencing. Say what?
After your first day, what did you do?
I went and called up a dealer and went and picked up some stuff because I could not handle what was going on. I could not handle the emotions. This was the first time I'd had any other emotions outside of rage in well over a decade. So I spent 75 hours in a medical detox, and what did I do? Went right back to what I was doing. And then, yeah.
I have a question before we keep going.
Okay.
So I want to back you up a little bit to when you were at the detox and the fog had lifted enough, right? And you were able to see yourself. Mm-hmm. Also with your previous mention about mental health, dancing, etc. For me personally, I think the thing that I didn't realize until later on, and it was in sobriety, is how all of those things like intermingled, because we talk about like disassociating and compartmentalizing and all of those things. Yeah. And so I guess I just wanted to touch on that sometimes that the effects of drug addiction and the effects that it can have on our body can also be a positive in other areas of our life. Mm-hmm. So for me, like it really fueled my ego that I could be teeny tiny, not only because aesthetically, but also as a dancer. Yeah. Like as a dancer, there's this culture of like, we have to be thin, you know what I mean? And so I just didn't know if you had any experience with that as well.
That's a really good question. Touching on that theme of the dance world, I watched a lot of my friends go through stuff like that, go through eating disorders and things like that. I had a friend that died from it. So that type of motivation, I'll call it, has always kind of infuriated me. But not because I'm like, well, how could you do that to yourself? But there's a sadness with it that is such a prominent theme in our society today, not just in the dance world, but across all society. And no one, in my opinion, no one's self-worth should have anything to do with the size of their body. But that, unfortunately, is a lot of people's reality. So for me personally, it was kind of like the opposite. Like I wanted to be muscular. I wanted to be like bulky and stuff like that. And I was, I think some of my dance instructors looked down upon me when I was still dancing, because they would say, all right, you have to do push-ups. Well, I didn't want to work out. I didn't want to do anything that would have gotten me the results that I wanted. And so I don't know if that answers your question or not, but, so I may have lost my train of thought of where we're going.
So, are we good there?
No, they answered it great. Thank you.
Okay, so you went out. God bless me, I'm breaking my own rules here. All right, Mom, Daddy, there. Okay, so we didn't make the Bradford. We relapsed. Oh, you relapsed, and then what? Man, dude, I'm blown away by your story. Let me just say this. I when I was newly sober, I've said this before, and you gave me a flashback of it. My sponsor, this is in New York, he took me to this wing of this hospital, and I don't know, at the time I was like, why are we doing this? And I held on to this teenager, female type hand. She was just, you described yourself. That visual you said about being gray and gaunt and you could just like, she looked like a Holocaust refugee, right? Yeah. And I remember her squeezing my hand with what little strength she had, and she was like, I don't want to die. Mm-hmm. And she was all clammy and everything. And that's the visual I got when you said that. Man, dude, yeah, you're a miracle. But how did you get from the relapse to what's the next step?
So, and this was abundant evidence of my higher power working in my life before I had even recognized that I had a higher power that was actively working in my life. During this time, I was gifted with the ability to be honest for the first time in my life. I had mentioned previously, I was a very, very skilled liar. My goal and everything, manipulation had become second nature to me. But somehow, some way, during this experience, I was able to be honest. And so I went to Bradford the first day, relapsed after, because my memories of things that I had done, like to my mom when she was sick with cancer and things like that, started flooding back. And that's what was too much for me to handle, because I didn't yet have the tools in order to be able to cope with and process those things. Because obviously at this point, I wasn't even an alcoholic yet, so I certainly didn't have a sponsor. But I called my therapist crying the following day, and I was honest with her because I was like, I'm sick. I can't come in today. She was like, all right, why are you crying? She said, why are we crying? And I told her, and she was like, okay, well, we're not going to kick you out of the program, but what you have to do is you have to come in here and tell your group what you've done. And that meant that I had to also go in and be honest with my fellow people that I was going through this partial hospitalization with. And I said, all right, I can do that. That was not Joel speaking. That was my higher power putting their hands on my shoulders and saying, this is what we're going to do. Buckle up, because this is what we're going to do. And I went in and I was honest, and that was July 31st was when I started Bradford, and so August 1st is my sobriety date. Okay. And I started listening. I was also gifted with the ability to listen to someone other than my own ego.
Listening is a gift. Mm-hmm. Where and all of us can attest, we get people that come in, and if we could just get them to drink a cup of what do you say? Shut the but they're still rambling. It's just like, yeah, so good. So you're listening.
Yep.
How did you get from Bradford to BTG?
So I talking about listening, in addition to the gift of being able to listen, I was also granted with the gift of willingness to take direction from someone other than myself, willingness to try something new for the first time that may actually help me become that productive member of society that I wanted to be and help me have that good life. So BTG, and this was before I had admitted to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. BTG carried a meeting into my treatment facility. And I experienced real bad DTs, even when Jeremy first met me. DTs so bad that like I was having involuntary muscle contractions and could not sit still, and I was jerking, and it's like, I felt terrible because I was like, again, self-centered thinking. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. I'm such a distraction to other people in the room, still being completely absorbed with self. But in the first, they carried a book study into our facility. And I remember it was Jeremy and Eric and Todd, I think, that carried the meeting in. And the first thing that I heard or that I hung on to, and I even have it written in my big book, it was Jeremy said, in this disease, we are all the same. And that was one of the first things that I was able to hear and understand and absorb from a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was like, that was really impactful for me. But they came, and then they kept coming back because they were carrying a month-long book study. And after one of the meetings, after I had gotten a little bit of clarity, even more, Eric stayed and talked to me after the meeting one day, and he was like, well, you got to come to birthday night. You know, we had mentioned birthday night earlier. He was like, you need to come to birthday night. It's like a family reunion. And again, like, that was something that was way outside of my comfort zone. I had been to two AA meetings at this point in time. First one was the first two meetings that I went to were at Wolf Street. And for some reason in my second AA meeting, and I was 11 days sober, they decided to hand me a microphone. And I'm sure that was a disaster. But it was in the big room upstairs at Wolf Street. And so, but it was something about the feeling of like, okay, so the meeting that I'm being invited to, these members of AA that are coming into my facility and taking time out of their day to help carry the message to me, like, I'll go and try it out. And this was when BTG was meeting at Bridgeway Hospital. And I will never forget the first time that I walked in, because it was like, it was kind of akin to like the walk of shame, because you had to walk down this long ass hallway, like, to get to the meeting place. And I walk in and I saw, I think it was Jeremy, Joe, and I call him Bert, but his name is Alan. And I think those three, and I remember seeing like Joe and Jeremy talking, but like they welcomed me with open arms. Joe, this is the first time I ever met Joe, and he welcomed me with open arms. And that was uncomfortable, because I'm like, I was not used to any kind of affection or anything like that. There was just a feeling of being at peace. There was a peaceful feeling. There was a feeling of being safe. I didn't know any of these people, and I felt safe with them. And that is that's only my higher power at work. And then, I mean, that was birthday night. That would become what is my birthday night. But I found my home and I never left, and I'll never forget. It was when this was a very distinct memory for me, because it allowed me to see what type of group and what type of people I was dealing with. And it was Sandy. She came up to me. I can't remember. I think it was after the meeting. But we were in the gauntlet, the long ass hallway that I previously mentioned. But she came up to me and she started opening her arms, and I stuck out my hand to shake her hand. And she stopped and she looked at me and she goes, well, I'll shake your hand this time, but we hug here. And she said that verbatim, and that softened my hardened exterior, and I gave her a hug, and it was one of the best hugs I've ever gotten in my life. And that helped. I mean, just how comfortable she was, basically calling me on my bullshit, like, all right, well, I'll shake your hand this time, but just FYI, this is what we do here. And she did that because they love there.
So I want to switch gears for a sec, and I want to hear Jeremy's perspective of what comes to Jeremy's mind with Joel. You're on, bud.
He's told me before. 2 words.
Slide in. I want to hear this.
Train wreck.
Get a bottle of water. Keep going.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'll use the same 2 words verbatim.
It was fitting, though.
Oh, come on. Uncensored and
That's right. Raw and uncensored.
uncensored.
No, it's, I think that's just, that'll be between me and Joel. But, I think that it's one of those that it's, when we see somebody come in, and y'all have to understand something at this particular point in time. I wasn't even a year sober at this point. I was 9 months sober. I was still just trying to get my feet under me. And me and Joel were able to connect at that particular point in time because I still knew, I still had that exact same, and this is where something that was said to me early on comes back into effect, right? Is this idea and this concept that we have that I don't have enough sobriety to go out and carry the message. And that is just complete and utter bullshit, as Edie just said, right? Because I was told something early on that never discount my sobriety, because I can connect to somebody early on in their sobriety with my 3 months, 4 months, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, right? Better than maybe somebody can at 30 years, because I still had that internal desire to know what it felt like, how he was dead on the inside. And we use that as a connection because he was scared. I was scared walking in there to Bradford that day because I'm 9 months sober. I'm taking a big book study in there with Eric, who is, 8 months sober, and a guy named Todd, who's just come in, right? And, now here I sit with the guy with the longest period of sobriety, and we're going to be, doing a big book study inside of a treatment center. Welcome to the shit show. Yeah. Right. And then I meet Joel, and there was just this instant connection because he was scared. He was alone. He was afraid, and he was over there shaking and twitching and doing all of the same things that I had just done 8 months earlier. And so I knew what he felt like on the inside. And yes, he did look like hammered dog shit. But we all do at that point. Yeah. Right. It's not a unique situation to him, but there was a connection that was made in that room that night whenever he walked into Bridging the Gap, and I saw him for the first time after having seen him, a few days before that. He listened. This is something this is the same pattern that I'm sitting here, I'm 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever the case is, right, out of treatment, and I'm gonna get drunk, high, kill myself, go to a meeting, something, right? And there was something in my mind that said walk into a meeting. Same thing that happened with Joel. And when he walked down that hall that day, there was the instant connection. There was joy in my heart that he had shown up and was there. And, I knew where he was at. It's scary as all hell. It's the hardest thing that you will ever do is to walk in that door.
And you can see that. I remember when Joel came in, I remember your very first meeting, you sat close to the door, maybe one row next to the exit, I believe. Yeah. If that was your first one, it was as close as you could get, but it was your eyes. You had that, everything that you described, it shows when you walk into the rooms. You were scared to death. You didn't know what was going on. You didn't know what was up and what was down. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's because we were, newly sober. I saw that in your eyes. I went, that is a look of someone who is scared to death, doesn't know what's going to happen, and does not know that this thing gets better. You don't know it gets better until someone tells you it gets better. And you don't. It's scary. It's the same eyes you came in with.
Talking to Lauren.
That's what gravitated me towards you. I saw that. And when you see those eyes, I almost think that that's somebody who wants it. that is somebody who wants it. And I remember just those darn promises. Pull up to my house in a brand new car to talk to Jeremy, and those darn promises just kept coming true. So that's what I remember.
And, you know, I think that's the one thing about BTG, about Bridging the Gap, is they are very committed to recognizing that in a newcomer and making them feel totally comfortable and totally welcome that you are in the right place and you are not alone. Because so many meetings I've been into for the very first time, even though I wasn't new in sobriety, I had just moved here and I had never been to that meeting and just not even recognized, not even anybody stuck their hand out, not anybody. And that is a terrible feeling for a newcomer, And I think that that's why so many people stay in Bridging the Gap, because we make it a point to make you know that you're okay, you're safe, and you are not alone anymore.
I have a question, because this higher power, this God that you've gotten, you are continuously talking about and giving props to, and that was absolutely not how you came in. What did that road look like? Where did you get from there to where you are now?
Great question. It's an ever-evolving road. You know, I did not grow up in a religious household. My parents took me and my brother to church when we were very young, and then I think I was about 5 years old. And we were given the choice. Well, do y'all want to keep going to church, or do you want to sleep in on Sundays? Well, I'm going to sleep in. Duh. And from that point on, because I did not grow up in a religious household, you know, the only exposure, the only visibility that I had of God, higher power, was like the standard Christian God. And I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with that. That never resonated with me, just because of who I know that I am as a person. And that I don't think that even if I had tried to force it, that was never going to work for me, because it's not something that I found solace in. It's not something that I could resonate with. But I didn't know until I picked up some tools in the program that I had the ability to choose my own understanding of my higher power. I had mentioned before that when I came in, I was proudly agnostic. I would become like aggressively offended if anyone tried to talk to me about God, because I had this idea in my head that God was this and I didn't want anything to do with him, but he didn't want anything to do with me either. And that was a relationship with that quote unquote, I call it the conventional God, just the typical understanding. Because I had never been given permission to choose my own understanding of my higher power, to go on a soul searching mission and see like what resonates with you. What are you able to connect with, like on a soul level, versus the Jesus, God, you know, that whole Christian belief. I never had any exposure to anything else. And so that was, and part of it was my fault, because I never sought out knowledge of anything else. But I got to a point where it was just like, I accepted that was God. I didn't want anything to do with him, and he didn't want anything to do with me. So then I came into the program, and the italicized part in the 12 steps that says, as we understood him. When I was in Bradford, that was the first time I had read the 12 steps up until that point, but I didn't understand that part until I started having a willingness to listen to other people and not be so aggressively offended when anyone tried to talk to me about God. And so I, started, working the steps with my sponsor, and through working the 12 steps is when I started being able to build some sort of understanding of what my higher power even was. I had said that it's an ever evolving road. I do not fully understand what my higher power is, nor do I want to, because just to describe my higher power does not have a gender. Gender is a human or biological construct, which my higher power is not in my understanding. It is so much bigger than a man or a woman or anything like that. My higher power is woven into the fiber of every being on this planet. My higher power is nature. My higher power is music. My higher power is things that make me feel love. My higher power is love with someone else. There was one time, and I did not understand what she meant at the time, but there was one time when I was in high school and my mom and I got in an argument, and she had brought up God. And she was not a super religious person or anything, but I told her, I said, I don't believe in God. And she said, don't you ever say that. And she said, when I look at you, that's God. And I was so self-obsessed and self-centered at that time that I couldn't broaden my mind or open my mind to understand what she was meaning. But it's like my higher power is everything. My higher power is the experiences that I've had in my life up to this point. My higher power is y'all. My higher power is my willingness to take direction from someone else other than myself. My higher power is learning. My higher power is growth. Everything that happens in my life is a direct result of my higher power. If I hadn't gone through the stuff that I had gone through in my past, I wouldn't be sitting here today, which also runs the risk of me not having a relationship with that higher power that I do today. That's my best effort to put it into words, but my higher power is expanse. My higher power is, I don't know, I could probably go on with descriptors, but that's still not doing it justice, because there's not any words in the language that I know in order to be able to accurately explain my higher power.
Right. So you started talking, when you started your talk, you talked about how your ego and everything was Joel and everything was what you wanted to do. How and when did that switch from everything being about Joel and everything being about your higher power?
Well, I would love to sit here and say
it was on this day at this time. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, and I'd also love to sit here and say oh yeah, everything is about my higher power. No, I still have those character defects. Absolutely. I think that, and this is my understanding, I don't think that I can ever work hard enough or well enough to get rid of those character defects. I think they're always going to be a part of me, but I have a responsibility to learn how to not let them rear their ugly heads. I have a responsibility to lean more on my higher power than on my self-reliance. And through leaning on that higher power, I will be able to not display those character defects that are inevitably inside me. As often, because I still, I have gone through something very recently that has let me know I can burn parts of my life down in sobriety as well. When I came into the program, my life got really good really quickly. The last time I had a craving for alcohol was I was 49 days sober, and I remember it as clear as day. And that's when I learned that praying works. I didn't know that praying worked until I was 49 days sober, and I got an overwhelming craving for alcohol, which was unusual for me because, outside substances were my thing, but alcohol was a common theme. But I thought, well, I'll try this prayer thing because I don't want to do this. And I got sober in a house full of alcohol. And so the fact that I didn't drink is a miracle in itself. But I started praying, and my brain just totally went off. My train of thought just went off the rails. And I don't even remember where I was going.
You did not drink. It was 49 days sober. Phenomenon of craving started. You said a prayer, and
within 15 minutes, I no longer had a craving for alcohol. Yeah. At that point, so I started working with Jeremy officially as a sponsor. I was about 30 days sober. And one of the first things that he had me do was learn and memorize the third step prayer. I hadn't gotten to the third step yet, but he knew that was important because that's something that helped him. And I started saying that prayer, and I just, God, please remove this craving. And it worked. And that was proof to me that prayer works. And the fact that I'm sitting here today talking about a higher power is a miracle, because 8 years ago, there was no higher power.
So what you just said is that is the miracle that because you kind of expanded on that when you were drinking and when you were growing up, you had you.
Yeah.
And that was all you needed, right, quote unquote, needed. But for you to say, I've only known you since I came in about a year and a half ago. So I didn't know you knew and all of that. But I do know that every time you share, it's always you put yourself aside and you talk about the solution, and you talk about the idea that we always have to try to be in the solution because that ego wants to come back, and that alcoholism is always there. But I think it's cool that is the miracle of God and our higher powers, that it's real for you today, when it just wasn't. It just was it was as obviously not real for you back then as obvious it is to me that it is real for you today. Yeah. And that's just that, again, that line that you crossed over, that's like, I'm never going to not believe. I'm never, we can still, I'm blowing my life up too in sobriety, but we can still have those moments. But as long as we're like hanging on to something, that hope that you hopefully in this fellowship, you'll never have to go back there again. Because it sounds like it was a really rough place. And I love you so much, and you're so sweet. And like, you're one of the ones that, like, you intrigued me because of that kind of RBF kind of, like, I was like, what's this? And I was thinking kid. I was like, I didn't even know you were close to 40 or at 40, but
right.
I guess
Same with Lauren, you guys look so
I know. I'm
younger.
Like, I guess I just don't know what 40 looks like. After 50, you just forget what 40 looks like. Shit.
Oh my.
And you are my little tech helper for me being back in school. And so I appreciate that. And you're always willing to help me and let me call you because you sleep in. And sometimes I'll be at 6:00 in the morning going, no, Joel's not up, but I need help. But you always help me, and you're so smart. And I'm just so thankful to have you in my life.
Yeah. I love you too, and I appreciate it. And you had touched on whenever I share, setting myself aside and focusing on the solution, and that's because that's a responsibility that I have today. I cannot live the life that I have. I cannot live a good life. I cannot live a good life. Sorry, Sherry's telling me to speak up. But that's a responsibility that I have, and that is something that was ingrained in me learning the tools for success in this program. I do have that responsibility. I don't always look, like I'd mentioned before, I don't always look forward to going and doing service work somewhere, but I always reap the rewards of it because it helps me get out of myself. And the more that I stay out of myself, the better my life is. Imagine that. And it really does, I have a responsibility to carry the message. I have a responsibility to, if there is someone in the room that is newer or that can relate to someone that I say, regardless of how much I want to diminish my own experience, I do have a responsibility to share when God sees fit, because I may be able to reach someone in the rooms or a listener of this podcast or anything like that. And so
that's great. All right. So, I'd mentioned, the consequences You really didn't have any, but then you gave the description of what you just went through. Yeah, those are consequences, pal. Wow. You alluded to traumas, emotional, mental, physical, sexual, as a victim, and then you mention some traumas as a perpetrator. I'm not looking for details. What I'm looking for then is those equal shame and guilt.
Yeah.
So cruising this road to recovery with your BTG tribe, your sponsor here, tell me how you dealt or deal with shame and guilt as how do you recover through that or with that?
So this is a perfect segue into one of my favorite quotes. I learned it. I wasn't so much on cliches when I first came into the program. I hated cliches. I have an okay relationship with them now, but there are certain quotes that I believe were presented in my path because my higher power knew that I was going to need to utilize those going forward. And one of those quotes is, and this does specifically relate to shame and guilt. One of those quotes is, "You cannot suffer the past or the future because they do not exist. What you are suffering are your memories and your imagination." And for someone like me who loves to live in the land of what ifs, what if this hadn't happened? What if this does happen? That's living in the past and the future and not living in the present. So where shame and guilt comes into that is I can walk around from all the experiences that I've had in my past and all the things and ways that I've hurt other people, I still have to pick up my toolkit to use to cope with those things that I have done. But I have the tools now to not have to walk around with that shame and guilt because I have people that I can talk to. Excuse me. Being human inevitably means being faulty. Okay. We are human. We are going to make mistakes. I have a choice today. I can either sit there in the shame and the guilt and focus and center in on like all the things that anyone's done to me that's wrong, or all the things that I've done to anyone that have been wrong, or these imaginary situations in the future that could happen that probably aren't going to happen. I have a choice to either live in those or live in like right now today. And regardless of what's going on in my life, if I am alive, then I am probably okay. I'm going to go through crap in my life. I'm going to go through health issues. I'm going to go through heartache. I'm going to go through all of these things. If I choose to live in that shame and that guilt, and that's not to say that I don't carry around that stuff with me, because I believe that helps shape who I am and how my future is going to look. I need to be able to recognize, absorb, and process that shame and guilt if I'm ever going to be able to cope in life without carrying that with me.
That's a common theme among all folks in recovery, is dealing with the shame and guilt. And a lot of folks, as we've expressed in previous episodes, that ninth step is a killer. There's a reason why the steps are in order. That's another reason why we have that umbilical cord onto our sponsor and our tribe. So that was a good answer.
Yeah. There's a part of, and this is something else that Jeremy had me read early on, is acceptance is the answer in the back of the book.
417.
That is a pivotal thing. And I had to read that over and over and over again before I was able to understand exactly what it's saying. Shame and guilt, I do not have the power to go back and change things that have happened in the past. I have to pick up that tool of acceptance and use that to deal with some things that I've done in my past. So.
Yeah, and I know I've shared this before, but Shannon, unfortunately, couples, randomly I'll be working on a project in the house or something, and I'll just holler out, "Stop it!" Because I'll have flashbacks of stuff from either being a victim or a perpetrator. And I have to remind myself after I say, "Stop it," just rebuke it, repent from it, and roll on. The 3 R's, man. Just let it go, Bob. Don't let that crap rent space in your head, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we know the big wave or the first wave of the tools that we talk about in recovery are, don't drink, go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps. And you really did a great job expounding on the service work. Are there any other particular tools that, that work, for you that you want to share or talk about?
I mean, one of the tools, and one of the many tools that I use, and this is this is in relation to my higher power as well. I'd mentioned earlier that my higher power is music. There are, I don't know how to explain this. So music is transcendent for me. My higher power is transcendent. There are emotions that I can experience that I need to work through in listening to music that I cannot work through in any other form of trying to work through that emotion, because there is something about music that resonates with me, whether it be the musicality, the voice, the lyrics. I listen to a lot of music without lyrics. There is something that touches.
It's called a cappella. No.
That's
the opposite. It's the opposite.
That's an instrument.
Instrumental. That's it. You see how smart I am.
But that is, I would say, like, if music brings you joy at all, find some of that music that can be transcendent to you, to take you to a place emotionally that helps you cope with that emotion and maybe work through it and cry if you need to or something like that. Because it's even this far into recovery, it's very difficult for me to cry. I've never been a big crier, but sometimes music will evoke that out of me, and crying is necessary in order to cope with some emotions in a healthy way. So that's one tool. Of course, prayer, finding connection with other humans that you can relate to in a level. You don't have to relate to them on every single level, but finding that community and finding people in the program, or maybe people even not in the program, that you can relate to on a certain level, because you need people in your life. And if you don't have a variety of people, you're not getting everything that you need from life.
That's very true. I love that. All right, so we're going to move towards the wrap up here. You've got an audience out there, and you know where I'm going with this, Joel. So, some of these people are, as we've learned, we've got an audience out there that are starting their recovery because of using Shout Out from the Pit as a tool, and I'm blessed to hear that. So they're listening, and then you've got folks like us. We've been on this path for a minute. However you want to throw this out there, what's your hope for them? How do you want to address it? This is your chance to speak to an audience that we may never meet.
That's a loaded question. I'm trying to find a way to put it into words. My hope, especially if someone is starting their recovery, or if you have found yourself in the midst, years into recovery, and you're going through a rough spot, because I have found myself in that position too, where I started to, communicate with my sponsor less, or form a resentment towards AA because it was taking too much of my time. I have found myself in that position too. So it's not to say that you only experience these things brand new coming into the program. Reach out to people. That's something that I still struggle with. Find things that bring you joy. Especially if you're new and this is your first go around coming into the program, it is going to be difficult. But anything in life worth having is not necessarily going to come easy to you. If it's difficult to go through, it's probably going to be way more worth it in the end than it would be if you had an easy road to get there. My road into recovery was not easy. I walked back through the gates of hell to get into recovery. It is the most difficult thing that I have ever done in my life, and it is the most pivotal paramount thing that I've ever done in my life, that I hold my sobriety sacred to me. And if you're new coming in this program, if you're sitting there thinking or getting into any kind of recovery, it doesn't necessarily have to be Alcoholics Anonymous, try to have the faith that you can do it if you have the willingness to listen and take direction from others. Because when I was new and came into the program, I did not have the wherewithal about me to direct myself in any sort of direction. And I had to rely on those around me to basically tell me what to do and kind of live my life there for me and say, all right, well, you're going to do this. You have to make your bed every morning. Being willing to take direction. Find people that you resonate with. If you have to go visit 100 groups, if you're dedicated to changing your life or you have reached such a rock bottom that you cannot stand existing anymore, you are at a perfect place to take a step in the right direction instead of staying at rock bottom.
All right, so I'm going to flip the switch now to our friends here in the studio. This is your chance, top of the dome. Thought you want to share with Joel, and I'll kick back.
Yeah, I'll start, and then everybody else can kind of run off of that. But there's one thing that I want to go back, and before I share anything else, this is something that it hit me right in the middle of the chest, and I think that it can hit other people too. And I think that it's something that you shared tonight that is very pivotal for people, right? Especially people in early sobriety. The only thing waiting in my comfort zone is my alcoholism. And when you said that, like it kicked me right in the chest because I fall into that in the comfort zone. I go back into those points in time whenever I don't want to go out. I don't want to be out in the cold. I don't want to be out in the rain. I don't want to be out in the heat. I want to go do something else. I'd rather go, it's like a case of the I wannas, right? Mm-hmm. And that is my comfort zone, and it can kick me in the chest. But I think that was very, very pivotal, and I would love to hear you share that with other people because I think it can help a lot. The other thing I'm going to say is that I find it interesting when we think about the concept of God, right? This concept of your higher power. And you say that it's anything and everything. It's all encompassing in the universe around us, and we're just surrounded by it at all times. But the two things that you kind of alluded to was music, and inherently with music, we're in a constant vibration. Mm-hmm. And if we think about the context of everything in space and time around us, it may look like a solid piece of wood, but it is in constant motion. Mm-hmm. It is always moving. And we talked about it beforehand, the vibration of the snow, mm-hmm. the vibration of this fire going beside us, the vibration of the sound of our voice, mm-hmm. and what we don't like hearing it on the radio, but we hear it, we're so common and in tune to the vibration in which it's coming out of our mouths. But that frequency is what allows us to move. Mm-hmm. All of those frequencies, right? And so I think whenever you talk about it being all encompassing in everything in the environment around you, that was the first thing that came to my mind is we're always constantly surrounded by a vibration. Walk under a power line, yeah. And it hums and it vibrates, right? These lights are humming and vibrating, everything. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I find that very interesting. And I think that's just something else that I take away from this is, I think that there's a lot to be said about vibration. Sherry and I have talked about it, and I believe in the whole vibration thing and sound washing and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But the last thing that I'm going to say is, I've told you this many times. I'm very, very proud of you. Very proud of you. I'm proud of the person that you have become. And whenever I sponsor people, there are two non-negotiables. One is you're going to do a 4-step. Like, you're going to do it, or else we're not going to work together, because that's kind of the point of us going through this, is to clear up the things in our past, right? But number two, you're going to be of service to someone or something or Alcoholics Anonymous in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? And Joel embraced all of those things early on, and he still does it today. And it's just been an absolute pleasure and a joy working with you. You know, I consider you one of my dearest friends, and I love you very much, and I'm proud of you.
Love you too.
I told you what I'm thinking.
A couple of things that you said. Music definitely is a big one for me also. I go through a lot of emotions through music. But when you were talking about your higher power being all encompassing, what hit me was my sponsor is always pushing meditation to me. She's huge on meditation. And I have difficulty with that. I have real difficulty with meditating. But the times I have really tried to do it, and so I try to bring God in, as she says, bring God in. And when I close my eyes and I'm thinking about it, and I don't know if this happens because I don't feel like my eyes are closed tight, but I don't, it's kind of like, but what's weird is when I do that and I really concentrate on God, the only visual I get, what I get, and it's the weirdest thing, I get an eyeball, just an eyeball looking at me. And so when you were trying to describe your higher power, I can't describe mine either, but I know he's got his eye on me. And that's what it made me think of. But I'm also very proud of you. I remember when you came in, and we've had some good times together. And I always come back to the, what do you call that thing we did? Scavenger hunt. The scavenger hunt. Barely Legal did a scavenger hunt to raise money for Archipaw or whatever. Yeah. And we put together this team from Bridging the Gap. And Joel and I were on this team together, and he was fairly newly sober. Yeah. And I saw a whole different side of him. We had to do all kinds of things, and one of the things he did was the downward dog. I think that's what you call it. We had to find a yoga studio and do a downward dog pose or some kind of yoga pose and take a picture of it outside the studio. Yeah. And just all these crazy ass things that we had to do, but it brought him out of his shell. And I watched that happen, and it was just so beautiful. And then I'm going to make this last plug because he's been talking about tools and its toolbox and this and that. So I'm going to make this last plug for Winter Holiday Convention because the theme this year is the spiritual kit of tools, or the kit of spiritual tools, something like that. Yeah. I swear I'm on the committee. I actually designed the shirt. You'd think I'd know it, but so yeah, Winter Holiday, Embassy Suites, Little Rock, February 6th through 8th. Be there, be square. I love you, brother.
Love you.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I guess I need to say something then.
Maybe.
This is something that it's not coming from me. I have no words of wisdoms, but I'm very grateful for some things that I actually listened to. And one of them is quit looking for the differences and start listening for the similarities. I heard something, and I think it was Cabot. Or was that your first time speaking? Yeah. And I heard something, and it stuck. I said, what the hell? And I'm a firm believer, if you know somebody, just suit up, show up. But, especially first time. And, I heard a little bit, but that damn, don't listen for the differences, listen for the similarities. And this tonight, I don't know, I've heard you a few times, and I've gotten a little bit more each time, but I was able to really just listen to the similarities because I didn't want to talk. And she put this in front of me. And I'm so grateful that I just got to sit here and listen because there's so many similarities that if I'm focusing on the differences, I would miss them. And I might have missed an opportunity for some of the tools you laid down tonight. So thank you.
We inherently don't. That's just how it is.
Lauren, do you want to go?
Everyone's looking at me now. I don't have words, honestly. I know. It's weird. I don't know. Joel, you're just so incredibly special to me. I felt a little bit gypped that I didn't get to see you come in. Like everyone else got to see that version of you. I don't know what that's like. Because you got to see me come in, but there's so many times when people say that it's like we had the same eyes, like coming in. And I know what that feels like, right? Like I think that there's this level of empathy. And so, I have found it to be such a privilege to just to get to be your friend. And I hate to think about like you had mentioned our lives and like regret and shame and all of those things. And that if we didn't have every single piece of our life up until this moment, then we wouldn't have this moment. Right. And it's like, what if I didn't get to meet you? Like, what if I didn't get to meet everyone in this room? I think that we've talked about, the magic of bridging the gap and that level of safety and the level of love and how it's truly, truly tangible. And so it's been such an honor to be able to, one, get to know you, and then two, to be able to sit here and listen to you, share your story and fully and deeply resonate with absolutely everything that you've said. Like uncannily so. But one thing that, especially towards the end, that you brought up, I think it was prompted by a question, and you, the way that you answered it about how it is your obligation essentially to show up. It is you have this responsibility, right? And it made me think about this reading that my first sponsor had me memorize to go along with our kit of spiritual tools, is in one of the books. I'm blanking on it right now, but it's one of our daily books, and it's from January 6th. And there's a line in there that says that the goodness of my life is a necessary foundation for its usefulness. Mm-hmm. And for a pessimistic introvert like myself, who feels really, really, really good about being in self-pity and catastrophizing and being the victim, but then manipulating and all of those things, like I'm real comfy in the dark. Yeah. That concept of like the goodness of my life is a necessary foundation for its usefulness. Like I think you embody that. You do. Like you embody that. And it's not even just in like, your life of where you're like, the way that you show up, because you show up for AA, but it's in like the little things too, it's like, newcomer me and you're like, hey, we're going to go to area. I said district last time. You corrected me. Like we're just going to go to area, and you just like, you're like, get in the car, and like, and then other examples of like,
I may have guilted her into that.
You what?
I said I may have guilted her into that.
You did guilt me into that 1,000%, or like me walking up to Jeremy and he was GSR at the time. And I was like, I don't know. I want to be of service. Like you guys keep saying be of service and help me be of service. And somehow he's like, okay, hey, Grapevine. And I'm like, hey, Joel, help me out with Grapevine. Right. And you're like, just show up to the meeting. Like, and we're going to go to winter holiday and we're going to do the tables and all these things. Like you've taken me under your wing in so many ways other than just what I think like we kind of see on the surface of things. And so it's one thing to hear it, I think, in a meeting. It's one thing to read it in a book. it's another thing to experience it in this like relational connection. And so I guess it's a really, really long way of me to say thank you, of like walking that with me. Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Too many.
I love her.
I love it. I love it. I think so. It's the fourth dimension of existence. This is what the book talks about. When it says it will rocket you into the fourth dimension of existence. This is it. It's not by yourself. It's with your group. But I can't even talk about you without that I tear up, because I just saw the brokenness that walked in that door. And the man that sits there today is a testament to, doing a couple steps, getting a sponsor and doing things that, you used to stand in the corner and go, I don't want to do this either. I get it. Yeah. You literally came to AA with no home, no job, no future, no friends. And you have your own home, your own car, a job that you excelled in, and so many friends that you probably want some of them to go away sometimes.
Never gonna happen.
No, I don't want that.
So if you want what Joel has, do what he does. And I cannot believe the things that you have gone through in your past that, by God, you said will not hold me down. Because by all means, you have every right to drag those with you. Freaking good on you for not. Good on you. So I absolutely love you with all of my heart.
Love you too. Thank you.
Hey, Mike. That's it.
It's like
You don't get to go next.
Skip you.
Do not play. Do not play phase 10 with Joel. Okay, you have everything in your life except the ability to win at phase 10.
Apparently.
I didn't skip you. I was not at his table.
No,
okay?
I got the highest score on Skip You.
Are we talking about Skip Bo?
It's kind of. It's like a game. No, phase 10.
Phase 10.
Oh,
So it
phase
is.
10. Never
Yes,
heard of
it's
that
kind
either.
of like that. Yeah.
Okay.
The higher score is not a good thing. And I got the
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
score.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, man. I very rarely do I meet somebody that could be both an extra on The Walking Dead and the hero. I mean, you've done both. Wow. You've been with us on a few episodes, and I've always, since I don't know you, and when other people come on the show, like even Sam, meeting you guys and Lauren, and then learning who you were, because obviously I didn't know who you were, and but you telling us who you were, and then folks seeing that firsthand, and then seeing from their eyes who you are today, and just hearing your story. That's a fantastic message, and you carry that out. One of the things and I'm getting ready to say it now, is the magic behind our survival is service work, and you dominate that, man, and that is just absolutely key. I've got two people here on Winter Holiday Committee, and I know you guys are deeply involved in everything you do. So thanks for setting that example. And I did take some notes here, and when we wrap up here, I need to get that quote from you, because that was on the Shame and Guilt. I really like that, but I can't articulate it because I am tired, because I'm a senior citizen. All right. Yeah, that's a wrap for today's show. So listen, folks, I don't know what you want to say on this topic, but I want to hear from you. So you can go to Facebook now and leave your thoughts. So you can go to shoutoutfromthepit.com. If you do go to Facebook, just look up Shout Out from the Pit. And obviously one day your show will be on there. We're just little by little. We just started this thing not too long ago, so it'll take a while to get all the episodes out there. And then YouTube, we're going down that road too. So, of course, it'll be audio, and then there'll be some fun stuff that'll be associated with it. All right, so folks, leave your thoughts and comments there, and remember, I'm going to say it. If you want to feel good about yourself, do something for someone else, and you sure set that example, Joel. So, as finally, folks, you're not alone, and if no one's told you they love you today, we love you. So God bless you. Have an outstanding American day. This is Bob, the Old Rucker. Peace out.